Hey guys, you're on the JRB Tree Climbing channel. For me, a knot guy, it doesn't get any more exciting than this. I have a new friction hitch to show you that I discovered. And let's talk about this process of discovery real quick. There is a fair chance that I'm going to show you what I think is a new knot today. And lo and behold, it's already been published. And so with some humility, I'm showing you this knot. It's possible that I'll have to take this video down and reuse the footage and give it its proper name if it already has one. And so first and foremost, if you're aware that this hitch, exactly as I have tied it, has been published under another name, please leave a comment. But in the meantime, we're going to get started, and we're calling this the Kraken hitch. Now, real quick, Kraken, that's a mythological creature from Scandinavian culture, as I understand it. A large giant that lives in the ocean with tentacles and whatnot. Really doesn't describe a hitch real well. However, in posting about this hitch in my Facebook group and with my Patreon team, along the way, in the excitement to get this hitch released, someone used the term, please release the Kraken. We had a vote on the name in my Facebook group, and it was the clear winner. And so we're going to go with that name, the Kraken hitch. And while we're on the topic, if you'd like to support me in my journey with safe climbing, you can support me on Patreon. If you've got questions, the best place to ask them is in the JRB Tree Climbing Facebook group. My website, jrbtreeclimbing.com, has got all the answers to all the questions that I can even think of, and it's regularly contributed to. That's the first place to go. So today I'm going to show you everything I know about this hitch, including how to tie it, its features, and its limitations. But let's give you a closer look. Okay, so here's the beast. Tied with 6mm cord on 8mm rope, and closed with a hunter's bend at the bottom. Let's get in and take a closer look here. Load is placed on 2 strands as indicated with my left thumb. Those 2 strands go under 2 turns and appear to become 3 and 4 on top. So it's 2 under 2 become 3 and 4. The hitch can be tied in many different ways, but as you can see, it's really small and really sleek. I'm going to slide into view some other variants. This is the same exact hitch you just saw a moment ago. It's just that I was able to tie it with only 3 feet of 6mm cord. That's pretty incredible, and I can execute an SRT climb on this. I am not aware of any hitch that's this small, constructed with that little cord, and I can actually climb and break it under load. Here's another variant. Now this one just happens to have more wraps. For fun, I went with 2 extra wraps, but it's the same exact hitch. When ropes and cords are wet, it's not uncommon that we have to add an additional wrap to ensure adequate hold. And so I do advise it's always best to tie your hitches with a little bit of extra cord so you can always add another wrap if you need to. Here's a variant. It's the same hitch, it's just that I moved the bend. There's no bend down here in the loop. The bend has been moved up inside the hitch, and this allows us to have a sleek loop and to be pretty precise with the size of this loop and make it as compact as we want to. Here I've got the very same hitch tied in camouflage cord, but the bend is actually a Longhorn hitch, and what this allows is tending. I can get this to auto tend. And if I were moving a really heavy load, like in a progress capture situation, like dragging a deer up a hill, well, I'd probably run it this way. The hitch itself doesn't auto-tend that incredibly well. I mean, it does auto-tend, but after a significant load, I would not call this an auto-tending hitch. It's a little bit difficult to move and works a lot better this way. Here I've constructed a foot loop, a no metal foot loop. It's just what you saw a moment ago. And inside, for friction reduction, I've put a piece of tubular webbing. And this also auto-tends quite nicely. I'm showing you a lot of options here, but there are applications for them. I've been using this for quite a while. Switch your view over here onto my bridge. This is my saddle bridge, and this is the Kraken. And look, I can auto-tend. I can let it out with a couple fingers, and a no metal auto tending bridge. This is going to be a separate video. I just want you to see what the possibilities are with this hitch. Okay, so now let's tie one. I'll be using 6mm Sterling TRC cord on 8mm rope. We've got a number of high quality, high tenacity 8mm climbing ropes for saddle hunting and caving and related disciplines. If you're familiar with the Michoacan, and I've got a dedicated video on it, or its cousin the Petricon, which are effectively the same in architecture, you're going to have a huge head start. I've got 4 feet of cord here, and I'll start with the standing part on the left about a foot long, about a quarter of the length of this cord, and I'll pinch it here with my thumb and forefinger. The longer working end on the right side, I will be making 6 upward coils. Let's get some sun on you there. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then bring the working end down and cross it over the standing part. Give you a second to pause your playback if necessary. And we'll be redoing this at the end of the video, so don't worry if you don't get everything the first time. With the working end on my right side, I pop it up through the bottom turn and force it out the back. That, my friends, is a Michoacan. Again, some call it Petricon, depending on your orientation for this, for your lines. With the working end, I bring it around back to the left, and I make a turn over the standing part. Over the standing part. And there's only one last thing to do, and that's to take the working end and shove it back through here. Now, I will say, if you want to get this tuned just perfectly, it pays to make this kind of tight. So I tend to give this a tug here. I give it a tug when I create the Michoacan. So it's fairly tight. And then I make my round turn around the back. And now I'm going to force it through both of these strands. So right now it's riding on top because I tied it kind of tight. But when I give this a tug, it'll pop to the bottom. Ready? Gave that a tug, and there, we've got the completed hitch. I am not going to adjust that at all. I'm simply going to form a hunter's bend. See my video on the hunter's bend. You should be familiar with it. It's fantastic in these kinds of applications. I much prefer it to any other bend. And I'm going to get on that, and I'm going to climb on it right now. I want to point out that the hitch is really stable. So unlike the Longhorn Agile, where it can kind of come undone, because these wraps bind the load strands pretty well, it really doesn't come undone. So that's an additional feature. So I haven't adjusted this at all. I'm going to clip into it with my bridge. I'm going to put my weight on the hitch immediately. Haven't climbed this tree before, or of course this hitch. As always, when I'm climbing, I make sure that the hitch is in easy reach. I like it at the top of my reach. It's a little bit low, and so look, I'll adjust my bridge length, which again is the Kraken over here. I'll make my bridge just a little bit longer, so this is in a comfortable position. When I advance the hitch, I'm not gripping on the hitch, I'm pushing up from underneath it. Unlike the Longhorn Agile, which allows you to actually grip the hitch, this needs to be tended by pushing it up. I'll talk about some more features as I climb. So it's got a firm consistent hold. I'm going to just take my thumb and forefinger and move it up. Did you see that? It moves well, but relative to some of the other more elegant hitches I've showed you, like the Longhorn Agile and the JRB Ascender, it is more grippy. It requires more effort to advance than it does those hitches. And so I'm not saying we're going to replace those hitches in all applications. I just want you to understand the relative performance. It's more grippy. Critical. It is non-jamming. It has a firm and consistent position. It expands the same amount all the time. It's possible for it to be too loose, and it's possible for it to be too tight, and it's possible to retune it real well. But once we get it, it just stays that way, and that is fantastic. Most friction hitches, like the Mishikon, they can get jammed up. Okay, let me just get up a little higher. It's not a climbing lesson. I just want you to see how, again, I'm only using 2 fingers to advance it. It requires a fair amount of effort. Obviously could go higher, but I'm just going to get out of view. The performance of the hitch, and I've got hundreds of practice climbs on it, has taught me that the hitch remains consistent all the way up to the top. Now here is an absolute key feature. Whenever we're climbing, we need a hitch which is reliably breakable under load. So I'm going to form a munter hitch here. And I'm going to intentionally leave a little bit of slack in here, which normally I would take that out. And what I'm going to show you now is I can break this reliably under load. Now, I don't ever want anyone to get caught in a situation where they can't break their friction hitch. I've got a dedicated video on how to recover from an unbreakable friction hitch. And I'm sure you might have some devices laying around like a spare carabiner, or I've got a quick link in my pocket. There you go, fish that out. A quick link can be used as a breaker. It's a good idea to have one of these. If you ever wind up in a situation where you can't break a hitch, you could pop this on your climbing rope and use it as a braking device. I've honestly never needed that with the Kraken. So with just my thumb and forefinger, I'm going to place my hand on the top of the hitch and I'm going to break it. And I'm telling you, it's moving already. I'm going real slowly, really slowly, really slowly. I stop, really slowly. And now load has been absorbed by my munter. As always, I wiggle it just a little bit to get it loose for rappel. That's true with any friction hitch. You don't want your friction hitch used as a rappel device. You just use it as a backup. Now here, just, simulating that I could stop at any time, I'm going to remove my munter. And the last little bit of my rappel, I'm going to freestyle just on the hitch. I'm just breaking the hitch. Now, most friction hitches, if you did this over and over, the process of breaking and letting it hold, well, they would just be getting more and more jammed up. But the nice thing about this hitch is that even after all of that, I can still break it, I can still move it, wiggle it a little bit, and then I can repeat without taking the hitch off. This is critical because I've discovered, a lot of times I thought I had a pretty good friction hitch, but after the second or the third climb, it just got tight. It got tight. It started to get jammed up. And I could just climb over and over again on this hitch. Again, I'm telling you not to rappel this way, but yet I'm demonstrating it to only demonstrate the concept and the properties of the hitch. So the most important feature is that I can climb on it. If you're aware, you know, there's a lot of folks, especially in the arborist community, who they love to say, oh, we don't need that. I got myself a Blake's hitch, or I got myself the Michoacán. Again, I used to love that hitch, or the Diestel or others. If you like your hitch, that's great. If you want to impress me, then I'd like you to see it tied with 6mm cord on 8mm rope and repeat what I just did. It's a pretty impressive set of performance characteristics for the hitch. In terms of limitations or things you should be aware of, I've mentioned some of them before, but I want to make sure you're aware of them. Although it kind of self-tends when it hasn't been loaded, after this has been loaded, I just rappelled, I could move that, but I would not call that a self-tending hitch. That's pretty poor performance for self-tending. We have to integrate either a tender, or as I have on my bridge here, I've got a Longhorn hitch, which makes a darn good tender. So that's one. The second one, again, I mentioned it, but it's grippy. It grips. And so moving it up after load requires a little bit more effort. So for example, you know I love to climb DSRT, and you know I showed you that in DSRT, if I'm using a pair of Longhorn Agile hitches, one on either side, I can move both of them with one hand. It quite amazed me when I realized how movable the Longhorn Agile is. This is not fun to try to move two with one hand. I'm not telling you you can't DSRT on it. In fact, I like executing DSRT because it's so sleek. It's much less likely to get caught passing through a crotch. But if you're going to DSRT on the Kraken, you're going to want to have that double shove technique with one hand on either side, so each hand is tending one hitch up. And the last point I want you to be aware of is that it needs to have a balanced load. Because of the way it's architected, if you try to tie this with an eye-to-eye cord, I'm not saying it's not possible, it's completely possible to do so, but it's really a lot of work to get it built in such a way that both strands truly have 50% of the load. And if you don't get a balanced load, your performance is going to vary. And so I'm really not going to answer any questions from folks who are having trouble tying it on an eye-to-eye. Why would you want to? Why would you want to buy an eye-to-eye where you had to pay more for and then have worse performance? Just use a piece of cord. It's less expensive, it's better performing, and it's more flexible. Okay, so I'm going to take you into the lab now, and so I can give you really good footage on how to tie it. But I urge you to, first and foremost, if you're aware that this hitch has been published before, please let me know. But also remind you, this is a process of discovery. I don't want you to rush out and start climbing on this in the middle of hunting season. I want you to test your stuff carefully. I want you to take responsibility for your own actions. I'm just sharing what I do. But I do appreciate your support and all the motivation I get from you guys. Let me take you into the lab. Okay, so let's tie the Kraken. Here, I've got it tied in the right-handed or Z chirality. Here, it's in the left-handed or S chirality. Both of these have the bend on the bottom, and that's a hunter's bend. Please refer to that video. I'll be going over that very quickly here today. And here in green, I've got the variant with the bend up in the hitch. So this would be standard with the bend down, and this would be the bend up in the hitch. And that's a flat overhand bend. And here I've got the variant with the Longhorn hitch on the bottom so that I can get that auto tending. Okay, I'm going to untie these, or should I say, release the Kraken. Okay, today I'm working with 6mm cord on 8mm rope, and I'm working with a 4-foot strand. And I'll start here on the left and tie the standard hitch that you already saw out in the woods. On the left side, that's about 8 inches. That's pretty good for the left side. And I'll squeeze that here on the rope, and I will be making 6 upward coils in the Z chirality. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I drape it down in front of the standing part, around the back, up through the bottom coil, and we've just formed a meech. Michoacan, I believe is the correct pronunciation. We take that working end, go around and in front of the standing part, around the back of the rope, and follow the standing part back out. It's really just a meech with some more magic on the end of that strand. And that's it. But I do like to get it fairly tight, because when we load this, it will expand. And the way to get it tight is to pull on the standing part. We want these coils, those coils. So there, I got that pretty tight. It should be a little hard to move at first, because it'll break in once we get load on it. And then here, I will be forming a hunter's bend. I'm going to do this real quickly because you should know how to tie the hunter's bend. Okay, so that's the beast. Let's move on to number 2. Okay, now let's tie it left-handed. In this case, the standing part would be over here on the right. I'll do my best to actually work with my left hand. I'll go around once. Just count our coils so you get to 6. It's always good to stop and count your coils. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, you could put more if need be. With the working end, which is on the right, go around behind the rope and up under the last coil. Goes up and out the back, comes around and goes over the standing part, around the back of the rope, and follows the standing part through those 2 coils. And it should wind up down the bottom. So I'll take the opportunity to dress this now, and because it's a little loose. If I load this, it'll just stretch out too much. It'll probably hold, but we want to make it tight. And so again, I want to spin those top coils, spinning slack into the bottom, and pull both strands, but I want it nice and tight. Okay, I'll skip the pageantry of tying the hunter's bend. Okay, so let's tie the version with the bend up in the hitch. I'm working with 5 feet of cord now. Could be working with 4, but I might want to make a larger loop. I've got a 24-inch working end up here on the top pinched against the rope. And this represents my desired loop size. How big do I want this? Do I want it really small? No problem. Let's tie it that way. Do I want it a little larger? Let's tie it that way. So I'll just randomly choose a size. I've got plenty of cord to work with, and I'll try to maintain roughly that size of a loop. Now this is going to look slightly different. I'll go around the same 6 coils upward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll go down, but I'm going to capture both strands because it needed to be routed there anyway. So I've learned that this is just a little bit quicker when you're tying this variant. I'm capturing both the standing part and the other side of the loop. And I form my meech. Make it kind of tight. And I bring that around, and that's where I stop with that strand. This is where my left thumb is. That is where we will be forming a flat overhand bend. I simply take the other end of the loop that's been sitting there waiting for me and bring it around the back. Right here where I'm pinching, that will create the flat overhand bend. But let's check our loop size. Oh, you know, I wanted that to be just a little bit shorter. No problem. Let's make it a little bit shorter. draw some slack in. That the right size? Great. It's holding in place. Bring it back, and I'm going to create a flat overhand bend here. What's a flat overhand bend? Well, it's just an overhand knot with 2 strands. But we do need to take care in forming it, because we don't want a sloppy overhand bend. We want one that's properly formed. By properly formed, I mean that none of the strands are twisted. So let's double check this. It's going in. There's those 2 strands. It's going around the back, and oh, look, they're overlapped. That's incorrect. I was a little sloppy tying this. Let's look at it again before I tighten it. Yeah, that's perfect. Now, this is a little bit sloppy. There's some slack in there, and I've got to get that out. How do I do so? We want to start by spinning slack down out of that upper helix and into the upper strand in the loop. The bottom strand will take care of itself when we load it. There you go. And for our final variant, I'll be tying the one with the Longhorn hitch in the bottom for auto tending mode. For this one, we want our ends to come out roughly the same length. And so again, I'll publish some length specifications, but for 6 on 8, the hitch itself consumes about 17 inches. So here, I've got 17 inches of cord hanging off the right side. Here's the pinch point where they're touching together, and here is the other end. I'm going to pinch this point. So right now, the strand here on the right is 17 inches longer than the strand on the left, and that should allow my hitch to come out roughly the right size. Okay. Here goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is now just a review for you. Getting used to it. Give that a good pull around the standing part, around the back of the rope, and through both of those segments, and give it a pull. So I've got the Kraken formed, and look at these ends. Wow, that is just a little luckier than I usually get. They are exactly the same length. Okay, so we're going to try to tie that and stay in view. Here we go. I take the strand on my right, I go up and around both strands, and it kind of stays there. Because I'm working with a little bit of a lateral component. And now I take the strand on the left, up and over. It's the beginnings of a longhorn on my finger. These 2 strands, one goes inside the other. But I continue to work with the upper strand, and as I retract my finger, I put the cord through it. Switch sides, over the other strand and up. That looks a little confusing, right? Well, not if you've actually tied the Longhorn. You can separate it. You can separate the friction hitch there from the Longhorn there. And the last piece, taking both of these strands and putting them through these 2. They go through there. I'm working with 4.5 feet of cord here. I could just get this done with 4, but 4.5 is a little better. Okay, let's put a carabiner on that for starters, and let's try to get that loaded and tuned. Now remember, I said at the outset that we want to make sure that our hitch is evenly loaded on both strands. Well, if I didn't tie this exactly perfect, it won't be. One strand might be pulling harder than the other. So let's put in some load here on this carabiner. I'm pulling any slack out of the working ends, and I'll feed a little slack up into the hitch and then reload it. We want to get this, before you'd climb on something like this, you want to make sure that it's properly tuned. That seems pretty good. All right. Now, in order to get it to auto tend, we need the carabiner removed. And we've pulled a little slack out of there. Let's open that Longhorn. See how I got that Longhorn open now? Now it accepts my entire thumb fits through there. And I take the Longhorn and straddle the rope with it. And you can see, even though I didn't tie this, I didn't go crazy about how compact I tied it, I'm absorbing some of that slack now. And I put the carabiner here. It straddles the line. And now I've got the auto tending. And as I mentioned outside, another way to do it, if you've got a heavy load, is this way. You choose which one works best for you. But on lighter loads, this one tends to flip through. That can happen on a lighter load. So for a tether or a bridge connection, I prefer this way. Okay, there you go. That's the Kraken. Good luck, and I think what we'll do here with knot tying videos in the future, I'll come back with some knot tying videos, but I think what I'll do is I'll do each of these as individual short videos. All right, guys, good luck.